there are different schools of thought in that even, because it's like there are some people who are like, I think it was Cole Porter who said the only inspiration I ever needed was a phone call from my publisher. Um, so, so that's a great creative artist. But then there are other artists who are like, well, this seems to lack inspiration. It seems to lack spontaneity. And it's like your routines are about sort of working with the muse, as much as anything. So I think that's probably my priority is like when I wake up, it's like, okay, what is the muse asking me for today? And sometimes it's, spending 4 hours sitting down and going through context and saying, okay, who can I talk to about this and this and this and this? Um, and then sometimes it's saying, okay, I need to write a whole lot of social media content today. And then sometimes it's like, I have like a vision for something big that's going to really put me out of my comfort zone. So, like, what are all the steps that I have to do to create that and create all the infrastructure behind it? And then sometimes it's like, yeah, it's finally time for me to like create the new bumper for my the second season of my podcast. It's okay, finally time to do that. So honestly, that's kind of how I approach it. It's not really more structured than that, not really more profound than that. And then sometimes I go for a walk and I listen to focused music or I listen to a podcast and put something in my brain that helps me shape my thoughts. So
Well, it's interesting because I feel like, I think what I do can transform people, but I think that the way I go about doing it behind the scenes in my office, I'm a transactional type person,
okay.
and that's why the habits are important to me, because those are in some ways a habit is a transaction. I know it's going to lead to transformation, but I'm more on the transactional end, and that's where I have to really focus on being a CEO sometimes and stepping back from those transactions and
Hmm.
thinking about this overall and be more. You talked about creative and art, and I think that's what I'm trying to think of the right word. The only one that comes to mind amazes me about you, but not in a weird way. I mean, just in a very complimentary way, is that you are always thinking about thinking
Ah,
and
yeah.
ways to think differently, and just seeing like what you've done in the last, well, I don't know how I can't. It's a good thing I can't remember how long we've been doing this podcast, because it's been a
Yeah.
year and a half or 2 years, coming up on two maybe.
It's like two
But
years. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just the what you've gone through, and you've had kind of these check-in benchmark moments when you've done the presentations at the business council as part of their Wednesday morning education luncheons, and you've used those as kind of like your check-in points.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, okay, I've done all this creative, artful seeking and thinking for the last year. I mean, you do it all the time, and now I need to check in.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
does all this mean? So, and then I think your book that you wrote was another kind of check-in point. So, but
Yeah.
in between, you're always thinking of better ways to think, and which in turn is going to help people in their own lives, in your coaching and your webinars and workshops and all the things that you do. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, and neither of our ways is right or wrong. It's our way.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're very you're when you wake up in the morning, and I'm putting words or thoughts on your but you're
That's
thinking
right.
about how can I transform my thinking differently, creatively, artistically.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, okay, I got to make sure I work out today so I can get my 15 minutes of reading in. Both ultimately get to the same place in how we want to be, how we like to be servant leaders and help, raise people up, right? But just the
Yeah.
path we get there. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Uh, our core values, our everything are, you know, good different, but we end up getting to the same place where we want to help lift people up in the way they live their lives and think.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you see that. That means a lot to me. And yeah, boy, it's really I was really curious to see like what would come up in this conversation because it's like